What is up guys, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're covering r/ProRevenge. Yes we are. If you're new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe and maybe that notification bell too, as it all really does help this channel out. You guys have been amazing on the last few videos with the likes, the comments as well, and that's one of my favourite things to see is your opinions on these stories. A huge thank you to the members of our channel. We have two new members who've decided to support the channel, 1992 Casey Wolf and Bo Walker. And if you would like to support the channel, click the join button below. There's two options which you can choose from. Please don't feel pressure to, because it's absolutely not necessary. And with that being said, let's get straight into today's stories. Much love guys. Our first story comes from Mike Aru 7. Half the class fails the midterm after cheaters copy me. I don't have a problem with helping classmates, I really don't. I even tutored several classmates during my final semester of undergrad because they needed the help. They all ended up passing their classes with my assistance. This story comes from a particularly tough business information systems class during my undergraduate education. The students in the class were mostly non-technical business majors, so this new material wasn't all that similar to anything we'd learn in other classes. Needless to say, most of the students were struggling, including me. I still had a 4.0 in college at this point, though I finished with a 3.99, and I was willing to put in max effort to keep my stellar GPA. I started studying hard, I made my own Quizlet sets, I read the book every night, I finished assignments a week early, and I did outside research. After grinding out this class for about a month, I was working on an assignment in a room designated for quiet homework time, and that's where our story begins. Several other students from my class were there and working on the same assignment I was on. Judging by the size of exasperation, the irritated whispers and requests for help, they weren't having much success. Having studied relentlessly for a month, I was having an easier time of it. As I got up to go and get some water from the fountain in the hall, a classmate asked for my help. I told him I could do that and I'd be right back. I returned a few minutes later to find what I can only describe as a bunch of busy bees happily working away. This was strange, since they were hopelessly stuck 2 minutes before, but whatever. My classmate tells me he figured it out without me. Now, I'm not an idiot, so I know 5 people in the room probably copied my work off my computer when I went to get water. Scumbag move number 1. But as it turns out, no one in the class needed help the next day or the day after. Whoever in the study room had stolen my work and had forwarded it to most of the class. Scumbag move number 2. I don't mind being helpful, but I hate being used. So I made a plan to get back at the people who had stolen my work. It didn't take long to organise my plan and carry it out. Here's how it went. Number 1, I changed an answer on the next assignment by multiplying by -1. 1,500 became -1,500 on this question. Number 2, the next week I left my computer in the same place as before and went to get water. Just like I had done the week before, 75% of the people in my class of 40 people put -1,500 as the answer to question 3, which was definitely incorrect. Number 3, I began studying relentlessly for the midterm. Our professor had said he wouldn't adjust the weight of the test. Something like, your score 50, on the test with 60 points available, so your score of 40 becomes 80% instead of 67%. If anyone scored particularly well, this class was difficult and no one was expecting anyone to score over 75%, so all my classmates figured out the weight of the test would be adjusted. My plan was to wreck the curve and deny everyone the adjusted weight by producing a sufficiently high score. Number 4, I recruited a classmate who hadn't stolen my work to study with. Together, we aimed to score high enough that our professor couldn't adjust the weight of the midterm. Here's how it all played out. No one who copied me realised the answer was incorrect. Every last one of those idiots submitted the wrong answer to question 3. This next part surprised me, but my classmates began insisting that the class was unfair, too difficult or rigged, and launched these complaints at our professor. One day after class I had the following exchange, since I was the last student out of the classroom. The professor said, "OP, do you think this class is too hard?" I said, "Honestly, this class is hard, but if people spent much time studying as they did complaining, they'd be fine. They really need to just get to work." The professor said I thought the same. Me, deciding spur of the moment my next move. I also happen to know that most of the class incorrectly copied my work on the last assignment. Question 3 should be a net income of 1,500, not a net loss of 1,500. I put down the wrong answer initially. Everyone copied me, then I changed the answer later. I think you can reasonably conclude that anyone with -1,500 as the answer cheated off my incorrect work. He said, "I figured they all copied, but I didn't know you were the source. Anyway, thanks for your candor and your dedication to the class." I didn't cheat, so I know what happened to those who did, but depending on the class, they would either get a 0 for the assignment or a plagiarism citation, so they got one of those. Fast forward to test day and I'm ready to go. I know since most of the students are business majors, they need 70% to pass a class because it's a required course. Hurting them on the midterm will go a long way in helping drop their grades. I take the test, I'm the first one done, and I leave pretty sure I've done enough to deny the class exam weight adjustment. A week later we get our assignments back. Tests are distributed all around me with scores on top in red ink: 68, 71, 70, 66, 75 and 67. And these are the smart students. Someone on the end of my row takes a test from our professor and lets out a sigh as he begins passing a test down my row. It stops on my desk. 93%. I've won. Some idiot in the front of the class: "So is there going to be a curve?" Professor says, "Nope." I say, "What was the high score?" And the professor says, 93%. Average score for the exam was 71, so a good number of people didn't get a passing score. Maybe they made it up on the final and passed, but I don't care. I got mine. Now most of this story is too smart for me anyway, but I can see an obvious flaw here. Just lock your screen when you go out. Windows plus L. Lock your screen, guys. It's not difficult. Wow. What do you guys make of that story? Have you ever had someone copy your work before? Let me know in the comments below. Our next story comes from the Thin Green Giant. AT&T tries to screw me over $139. I actually screw them over out of $72,000. Now, for anyone who might be slightly confused, AT&T is a telecommunications company. After my wife and I got married last year, we decided that we should both get on the same phone plan. We went down to AT&T store and met up with a rep who told us we'd both be on the unlimited plan for $70 a month all in, including taxes and fees. I was very specific about getting the all-in price for the service. It seemed like a decent deal, so we signed up. 2 days later, I log into the website and see there's already a bill for $139. I call up a rep to see what's up. They tell me that between the activation fees, taxes and surcharges, the bill was correct. I told them what the salesperson told me. They basically told me to pound sand. I promptly told them I would cancel the service and wanted the $139 waived. They said they could cancel the service but would not waive the bill. They also told me if I cancelled immediately, my wife and I would lose our phone numbers, which is true. So I figured since I already have to pay for the month and I don't want to lose my phone number, I would get a new carrier and cancel when I'm ready. So I do my research and find Visible, which is excellent, and we make the switch. I call back AT&T and inform them that we have switched carriers and want to cancel the service. I again ask for a refund. The rep informs me that since I have had the service for 4 days, that I'm not entitled to a refund. He tells me to read the fine print on the contract, which indeed tells me that I have 3 days to cancel for a full refund. I'm now fuming because the first CSR that I talked to on day 2 denied me a refund if I cancelled. I asked for the next level of CSR and they send me to a customer care and retention person. I explain the entire fiasco to him and how I feel that I have been lied to twice by AT&T reps, sales rep and first CSR. He's a really cool guy and apologises and says he'll take care of it and will completely waive the bill. I am very thankful and hang up thinking that is finally resolved. Fast forward a month and I get an AT&T bill in the mail saying payment was not received and is now late. I again pick up the phone and call AT&T. I eventually make my way through 2 CSR reps until I get back to the customer care and retention department. This time I did not have the chill dude. Instead, I got a very smarmy woman who said the bill was due and I'd owe the entire amount. I asked her to please check the CSR notes and that the last guy told me he would waive the amount. She put me on a 10-minute silent hold and came back and said she'd escalate the matter to her supervisor. She said I should receive an email by the end of the week with a resolution. 2 weeks go by, no response. I call again. This time I get a very nice lady that is sympathetic. She says she'll waive the bill. She comes back and tells me she can't do anything because the bill has already been sent to collections. She said not to worry and that she'll send a letter to collections to have them waive the debt. I asked if this would go on my credit report and she says no, and they'll take care of it. 6 months later and I get a letter in the mail from CQM Asset Solutions trying to collect on $139. I immediately send them a letter via certified mail demanding that they verify the debt since it's obviously bad. I hear nothing for 2 months and then I get an alert that I have a negative mark on my credit. I go in and sure enough CQM has indicated that the amount is in collections. I immediately write letters to all 3 bureaus requesting that they remove the remark. A month goes by and every single one of the bureaus removes the mark, thank God. Another 3 months go by and then I get a letter from Sunrise Credit Services in New York, again trying to collect on the debts. This is truly unbelievable because it appears that Seacream couldn't verify it, so instead of apologising and waiving the debt, they just sold it off to another collection agency. I send another certified letter to Sunrise demanding verification. I get nothing in reply. So far they have not attempted to put a mark on my credit. That's where this part of the story ends. Who knows what will happen next, but the filing fee alone would be more than the amount owed. Here's the thing, I'm not cash strapped. I am blessed enough that I could easily pay the $139 without making a dent in my budget. I've lost 5 times that amount in hours spent on the phone and writing letters, but I am determined to go to the mat with AT&T on principle alone. This brings us to the revenge stage. You see, in addition to my day job as an attorney, I'm an elected city councilman in my town, and when I was going over the monthly expenses, I noticed that we were paying AT&T close to $6,000 a month for our phones, internet and TV services. We're a fairly small town, so it was pretty obvious that we were being bent over by these clowns, and that we could save a ton of money by switching. I started working with our city manager and IT director on finding other solutions. We discovered that by switching to various carriers and providers, that we could save half. I never would have looked that closely in our telecom expense had AT&T not jerked me around. 2 weeks ago, the resolution to switch was put on our meeting agenda, and the council voted to pass it. We decided to completely cut ties with AT&T. Our city is saving a ton of money, getting better service, and with the money we save from switching, we're able to hire another part-time animal shelter employee, which we desperately need. I highly doubt our city would have considered switching if it didn't make such a stink about it. AT&T will end up losing hundreds of thousands over the coming years because of this. I hope it was worth it, AT&T. I'm reading the comments on this one. There seems to be a lot of people who don't like AT&T. You US folks will have to let me know personally if you find similar, but I'll post a link to this story in the description, so be sure to look, because there's also a guy on there who is a former AT&T corporate store manager, and he explains a bit how it works and how the employees are also treated and how they try to screw people over. It's quite interesting actually, so feel free to check that out also. And let me know what you think of AT&T in the comments below. This might not go well. And our next story is from Meggy Z. Landlord tries to keep us in a Mould house. We get his place condemned by the city. So this is my first ProRevenge post. I've lived in a lot of awful places throughout my college years, but this is one of the big ones. It's pretty long, just to warn you. I just recently moved into a house with 2 other girls. It wasn't the best house, but seemed to look okay for a college apartment. One of the girls had a friend who lived there before and told us that the landlord was sexist and kind of a dick, but usually meant well, and it was decent rent. I'll be referring to him as Dumbass Landlord. We were all broke, so we decided to sign a lease. I should have realised the warning signs when Dumbass Landlord wanted to sign it in a Big Boys, after he had just eaten dinner there, and the leasing agreement looking like he chopped out from other pictures of lease agreements on Google. We also found this apartment as an ad off Craigslist. Oh god. Things were fine for a few months. I was living alone until the next school year would start and wasn't home all the time, since I would go over to my boyfriend's a lot and sleep over. It was a split house with an apartment in the basement and ours on the first floor. It wasn't long until I started to notice things happening. We get a good amount of rain since we're in the Midwest by some big local lakes, and it was springtime. We get a good amount of water and the concrete steps of the house would consistently fill up with water I had to jump over, and it would disappear overnight. It also started to get a little bit of a musty smell in the house, and I started coughing and sneezing all the time, but didn't know why. Soon, the other girls moved in, and we started having some difficulties with Dumbass Landlord. He wouldn't tell us when he'd come over to check on the property. He said he did this to keep up on looks and mow the lawn, but he did it way too often for any of us to be okay with. He would argue with us about having a copy of our own lease. He'd yell at us to give him rent payments in cash, especially before going to his cabin up north with his girlfriend. But the biggest of all was that we were having problems with mould, and he did not care. For a while, we hadn't talked to the people in the basement apartment, till everyone started having problems with Dumbass Landlord. We'd hear them arguing and yelling down below, about as often as he would upstairs. But they were in a hellhole. Everything they owned had mould growing on it. They had bugs everywhere, earwigs, beetles, ants, you name it. They were constantly throwing away their clothes, dishes, furniture, and even their college papers and homework, since it was all growing mould. They spent money on plastic bins to hold most of their important items, but even those would get mouldy. We also found out they were supposed to have another roommate down below, but she couldn't live there from her allergies to mould after signing a lease agreement. We also found out that Dumbass Landlord verbally abused her and her mother on the phone, to the point where they were crying, and she couldn't get out of the lease. She ended up paying for 2 places every month so that she didn't have to live there, because he wouldn't let her break the lease and didn't care. Upstairs wasn't as bad as the basement, but it wasn't good either. All of us were coughing more and more each month. We'd wake up coughing in the middle of the night, and we were getting really sick. We tried to air out the house as best as we could, but nothing helped. I ended up getting a severe case of strep throat so bad that every swallow I took made my eyes water and made me verbally make noise from the pain. I tried to ask the doctor I went to if he could prove that this was from mould later, but he unfortunately couldn't give me a solid statement on it. Me being a vocal, neutral, good person, who was also going to school to be an architect, tried to explain to him what was going on in the house. No air circulation, his concrete steps and foundation walls were not sealed, so all of the water I'd jump over was most likely going into the basement walls, causing most of the mould. We also found a few areas on the roof that needed patching, since we noticed some leaks among other things. And the basement apartment had cheap patio doors for their only means of entrance and exit, which would constantly be up against water when it rained. Oh, smart dumbass landlord decided that we were all just girls complaining about silly things that didn't mean anything, so he brushed us off and said we were fine, even though I had told him that I was learning about these things in school and that I knew what I was talking about. He wouldn't let us out of the lease as hard as we tried, so all of us girls in both apartments decided we would get out if it was the last thing we did. Then began researching all of the legal apartment and tenant information for our state and city to get out. We were paying attorney's fees, started taking pictures of mould upstairs and downstairs that we could find, talking with several different city staff and police, and started compiling this into a nice document. After deferring my rent payment to get a copy of the lease agreement from dumbass landlord, we could finally take a look at our legal document and use that further to get out. We were also working with another landlord at a renting company in town, who I will call Good Ass Landlord. He was thankfully doing his best to get us out of the shithole and into his apartment. Through him, we'd get all of the legal ins and outs of the renting business, and he would help us find a loophole. Then, after months and months of arguments, money and researching, we found it. If we sent in a mould test to a research lab and it was over the limit of what was inhabitable, we could get out. It was safe to say we had a pretty good idea it was over the limit. The test came back a few days later, and we sent that off to the city, including our nice document of pictures, statements and leasing agreements. Not even 4 hours went by and we got a call from the city. Our house was so full of mould that we had to move out of the apartment within 24 hours and it was to be condemned. We were ecstatic. All of the hard work had finally paid off, although it was horrifying to know that the mould count was so high. The mould researcher who had been in the business for more than 30 years had not once seen a place with higher mould count than this house. Yes, this included black mould. Fast forward to us happily packing up in our house, all of our parents getting us out together, us moving into the apartment that good ass landlord kept open for us to move into, and poor old dumbass landlord sobbing in our driveway as we happily stacked boxes into our car, complaining that he should have paid more attention and listened to us. This was his girlfriend's property and she's going to dump him. We all took a picture the next day, smiling in front of the condemned signs. It's still one of my favourite pictures to this day. Serves him right for not listening to his tenants. Updates. Since a lot of people had asked and my response are buried in the comments below, I've decided to post them up here. As for the aftermath of it all, apparently the city knew about a lot of shady things he did when we spoke to them. It seemed like he was an eye-roll landlord. They all knew of other problems he had with tenants, but no one had been able to do anything about it until us. He sneaked his way out of things since it was a really small town. Unfortunately, there weren't a lot of rules set in place for bad landlords, unless they did something really illegal, which is why we had a really hard time getting out of there. Also, about a year or so later, I saw more college students living there again. We're pretty sure he did one of those at-home mould testing kits to get it up for sale again, or fought the city somehow. I don't know what he ended up renovating other than he ripped out a lot of carpet. I felt bad for those people, just wish them the best and hope they didn't have as bad an experience as we did. I wish it had turned out different in the end, but I hope he learned his lesson to actually help his tenants when they need it. I don't hate the guy, but I think he has some things to work out for himself. Some people are also asking why we didn't sue. We could have, but it wasn't worth the money and time, since we were all graduating in a few months and broke from speaking with lawyers. We did see what we could do about it though. We just decided that getting out of the house and cutting ties would be the best, instead of dragging the situation further. What do we always say on this channel, guys? Always press charges. I'm kind of disappointed in the end that guy didn't get more what was coming to him. I mean, he got it condemned for a while and obviously was crying in front of the house, which was awesome. But that guy shouldn't be a landlord, man. There's so many horrible landlords out there, and mould isn't no joke. There's no joke. You get serious health issues from mould, exposure to mould. That person might suffer down the road because of this, and they just sort of let him get away a little bit. I'm glad what they did, they obviously done the research, put a pack together, got the research, but the landlord should have had to pay for that. You shouldn't have had to pay for lawyers. But at least you wasn't stuck there in the end, and you did get the place condemned. So there is that bonus, right? Anyway, guys, what is your thoughts on that story? Have you ever dealt with... I know some of you guys must have dealt with a numpty landlord, surely. Let me know in those comments below. Anyway, guys, once again, thank you for being here. You are truly, truly appreciated. If you've made it this far, give me a hallelujah in the comments below. I've been really enjoying some of the stories we've been covering recently. ProRevenge, Let's Not Meet, Nuclear Revenge. They've got some really great stories from... Because, to be quite honest, I'm not covering entitled parents no more. I'm just not doing it. That just does my head in. It's not me no more. The stories are all too fake. I'm just going out there and saying it. They're all too fake, and I can't deal with it. I want good, spicy stories. So we're going to be trying some different subreddits from now on, especially the revenge ones. I really do enjoy the revenge, and Let's Not Meet, the creepy ones too. Good fun, and I hope you are enjoying them too. From the comments and the likes and stuff, you're showing me that you are, so please continue to do those because it really helps me out working out where we should be going with this channel. And with that being said, much love to you, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye now.